Western men who want a traditional housewife have no clue what it actually means. They just want a new mommy and are unwilling and/or unable to be traditional husbands. Yeah, I said it. These men have some kind of deluded fantasy based on media portrayal of the 50s and think they want that. No, you don't. You want to not have to cook, clean or do laundry. Don't pretend you want a traditional housewife unless you are also willing to be the sole provider, and be considered a loser and a failure if you cannot provide well enough. Shoulder the entire responsibility for the family's material well-being and safety alone. Have the skills necessary for residential and technical maintenance and perform those duties as diligently as she does the housework. I agree with most of it, but you don't really have to do maintenance work though. You can, just buy those services. In my experience, men who want this are usually frustrated that it seems like society expects those 3 bullet points from them already, and just want the other end of the deal. Do you know any house husbands? I do. Do you know any house husbands who aren't deeply disrespected behind their backs by all their friends and family, regarded as losers and failures and parasites? I don't. Same goes in the opposite direction. Women who want traditional roles are usually already experiencing the negative end of traditional roles, high expectations of their domestic and family lives, assumptions that any accomplishments they make are really the accomplishments of nearby men, etc. And just want the benefits that are supposed to come with the costs. My girl stays at home and I pay for everything. If you are the type of man they can do this, then you can get what you get a typical 50s woman. But you're going to have to bust your fucking ass for it. Last night when I got home I had a nice bowl of homemade soup, a steak, and this amazing keto-friendly banana bread she makes. Seriously, I love that girl. So really, what you need to understand if you want a traditional relationship is that you will have no less responsibility than you would in a modern relationship. You'll just have different responsibilities. And that you're still a couple and you should talk to your spouse before making big decisions, financial or otherwise, that will affect both your lives whether you're the sole provider or not. Not necessarily a $200 to $1,000 night out, but definitely retirement savings plans, mortgages, new car, etc. Agreed. You can't have dinner is ready when you are home with a cocktail in hand kinda life when you expect your wife to work and contribute financially 50/50ths. It is a very unrealistic notion, unless you are going 50/50ths on kiddo and chores as well. I knew a guy who wanted a housewife and he did find one. But you're totally right, he was willing to work 2 jobs and be the breadwinner, so he got what he wanted. People who want that but aren't willing to do their half are entitled. The only iffy thing was that he wanted a housewife for his children because he wanted them breastfed and said pumping doesn't work. I am a Western man. I check all of your boxes. My wife is a traditional housewife. It works pretty well for us. Crazy, I know. Right, a bang maid. It's a lot to shoulder mentally to provide 100%. My wife fell ill and had to leave her job. Weren't really planning on it since she has been working since she was young, and it's her work ethic. I make enough to do everything we want, and she doesn't have to work. Some people don't like not working and not financially contributing to the household. Edit. Also wanted to add that if the opposite were in effect, her working, me at home, I'd be the house hubby. I think it's realistic that the at-home person be the one to cook and care for the house, etc. There's a special place in hell reserved for people, usually men, who expect their spouse to work but also shoulder all of the household chores, babysitting, etc. I believe there was a study proving that in hetero relationships where both people work, the women do the vast majority of chores. Also, if you have a housewife, you should still sometimes take on yours so she can get some personal time and isn't on duty 24/7. I believe in traditional gender roles for my own self. I'm happier that way. I explained this to my ex-husband while we were friends and while dating. He didn't seem to have much of a problem with it. I told him I wanted to quit my job once we had kids and he'd have to be the sole provider. He didn't pipe up. He ended up trying to change me after marriage. I had to get the better paying job as well as do all the things a stay-at-home mom does. When I left him, he was baffled. He couldn't understand why guilting and shaming my beliefs didn't make me want to be a different person. He thought that because I did things his way, somehow I was happy. My house, I guess, is traditional, but it would actually cost us more in the long run for her to work than stay home with the kids, and we also homeschool. Daycare is expensive and we lost all faith in the public education system before the virus outbreak even happened. I can provide a wage, food to eat and a place to live. But I also do about half the housework, do minor maintenance to the apartment, maintenance the cars, pay the bills, buy the groceries, etc. Just because one person works doesn't mean the other should solely be responsible for everything inside the house. The only person I've ever known that's ever touted his desire for a traditional woman, lived like a slob, didn't cook his own meals, and could barely manage to do laundry. He wanted a mommy he could fuck. Now, I think privately hoping for someone to have those qualities isn't that bad. Of course everyone wants to date someone who can cook and clean. It's the for me part that always kinda taints it. I want them to cook and clean for me. I'd be willing to be the traditional husband or the traditional wife. But I'm not willing to have a modern relationship where everything is supposed to be split equally. I want none of that shit. If I ever end up in a long-term relationship and possibly have kids, I'm gonna be the stay-at-home dad and do the housework, cause I ain't no 9-to-5 kinda guy, and if I do earn the money I'll be a long-haul trucker living out my cab. Thank you for saying this. They want to treat the woman like a housewife but don't want the financial and or physical responsibility of being the head of the household. Yep. They want all of that and then want her to pay half the bills too. Pathetic. They want a traditional housewife, but with the awesome modern touch of also having a full-time, or at least part-time job. So, you know. Traditional as in does all most of the housework, cooking, and labor with their children if they have them, but also brings in plenty of cash. I mean, this is 2020 after all. He'd almost be a bit of a misogynist if he thought she shouldn't work, right? Face with tears of joy, face with tears of joy. My ex-husband said he believed in traditional roles and really pushed his religion on me when I was young. I found it difficult to accept but eventually agreed to his ideas about men being the breadwinner and such. Fast forward a couple of years of marriage and he'd quit his job and was refusing to work. All the Christian ideals he had flew out the window and I became the 1950s housewife and the man going out to earn the dough. That went on for years until I divorced him. He said I expected too much for wanting him to get a job or help with the housework. So I learned that men who say they want a housewife are usually full of shit. They like the idea of a home-cooked meal and a submissive woman who meets their needs, but they don't want to man up to their own role in that, which is providing. I then got in a relationship with a man who said he wouldn't mind if I wanted to be a housewife in the future, but didn't have strong feelings about it or a fetish for it. He just said if work is good for you and you enjoy it, keep working, but I don't need money from you, so it's fine if you'd rather stay home and take on that role. Whatever would make you happy and be best for your health is what I'd prefer you do. I still work as I'm working on my savings and I think independence is good for everyone. But I know if I had kids or wanted a break from working hard for my whole life, he would happily support me. He already pays a majority of the bills and he'd already bought the house we live in before we got together. I do most cooking and we both do the housework. He comes home from work and has his dinner cooked and a fiancée that is all over him. He has what my ex-husband wished he had from me. My fiancé has it because he never demanded it from me. He only appreciated it, never demanded, and always puts in a lot of effort.